Again, thank you for accepting this interview, for being available to speak with El Diario. Eh, First of all, I want to know, let's start with the simple, I think, but mandatory question here, and it's when and why you decided to run for District 7 seat?
Absolutely. So I decided to run in part because I was asked to. I had come out of the labor movement. Before I was in the New York State Assembly, I was a member of UAW Local 2110. I worked at Columbia University, and that was really my introduction to politics, to how ordinary people organizing together can change their workplaces and their lives, their coworkers' lives. I was really involved with my union. I was on our bargaining committee. I was a unit chair, so I got to stand shoulder to shoulder with my coworkers in grievances and arbitrations, disciplinary meetings, and really it was instructive on how to contest power and how to build it with your coworkers. That was the reason I ended up running for New York State Assembly in 2024, and that is exactly the same fight that I want to take to Washington now in this congressional run, by putting working people at the very heart of our agenda to fight for things like universal health care, housing, truly deeply affordable housing, to abolish ICE, and to make sure that any worker who wants to organize a union has the resources and ability to do so.
Okay. Why do you think you could be a better congresswoman than Reynoso or one? Because they have also spoken about those topics and they argue that they have work for those issues. Why you are the best option for this for Congress?
Sure. So I think the my experience in the labor movement is the thing that differentiates me, right? I know really intimately what it's like to stand side by side with your coworkers and to fight for the things that you deserve, to go head to head with, a really powerful institution like Columbia University that is very dead set on keeping its wages low, and oftentimes not bargaining in good faith. That took tremendous organizing with coworkers across a lot of different political divides. A lot of differences. My union it still is 500 workers. It's primarily women of color who've been organizing in that unit for decades. The lowest paid workers at Columbia, we're talking about cashiers and dining halls, call center workers, administrative assistants like I was, taking on a really big institution. And so my experience with the labor movement, my experience organizing to democratize UAW and make it a union that really reflects member interests and help to elect Sean Fain, our president. Those are all things I think that I bring to the table that are really distinctive, and that's the experience that I bring.
Okay. The Major Mamdani endorsement of your political aspiration, I want to talk a little bit about that. Do you think that with his support, you have more opportunities, basically to prevail in primaries?
I'm really grateful to have the mayor's support. He and I got to organize together in Albany, and he was one of the people who encouraged me to run for New York State Assembly back when I was making up my mind there. And one of the things that he said that was so compelling to me was just what we can use our offices to do beyond just passing legislation, how we can use our offices to organize in our communities, to help people connect with tenant unions, and who might be interested in organizing their workplaces, to connect to resources there, to really empower people to take on these fights themselves. And our offices can be instruments for doing exactly that work. And so, the mayor won a really commanding victory last year in the primary in New York 7. And he brought together a really broad swath of the electorate who previously had either not voted before, or who might have even voted for Donald Trump in the presidential election. And he did that by really centering the affordability agenda and talking to the things that matter in people's lives: the cost of childcare, the cost of transportation and housing. And he prevailed in a surprising way. I think a lot of us were surprised. And so I'm grateful to have his support in this race. And I think this is a district that's really primed for the kind of politics that he and I and our movement represent.
As you know, on the other side, Mamdani's campaign, Mamdani's support to your campaign has led to divisions inside the Democratic Party. I ask you, are you worried about what this could mean to the party on the long term?
I think Democratic primaries are healthy. I think it's important for us to be able to make the case to voters about our respective experiences, our visions for the future, to connect with voters who live in the district about the things that matter in their lives. And this will be hashed out in the coming months. And I'm really excited and looking forward to a really vigorous and energetic campaign. And we already have knocked on 12,000 doors so far in this campaign, and I expect to knock on many more before things are done. So we'll make our case to the voters.
Okay, I ask you this because I guess you read the article. Nydia Velázquez already said that Mamdani endorsement to your campaign will create like fractures in the party. That's why I insist in this question.
No, and I understand that. I think from my perspective, I'm really committed to no matter what happens in this race, I think we all have a responsibility to hold together the progressive coalition that not only elected Zorah Mamdani, but that has built real power in New York 7. There's a long history of organizing in this district against bad landlords and corporate bosses, and those are real and shared enemies. And I think we can come back together after this primary, and that's work that I'm very committed to doing, regardless of the outcome, because at the end of the day, we do have incredible challenges to face in New York City, in New York State, in the United States, and it will require all of us kind of aligning together to do that. But in the meantime, we do have a Democratic primary, and I think that's important for democracy to let it play out.
Okay. We interview Reynoso, and we're going to interview one as well. Reynoso said that he was disappointed because he was expecting the mayor's support. He said, among other things, that the mayor didn't consider the opinion of other leaders like Nydia Velázquez. I want to know, what is your reaction to that statement?
I think that I'm really proud to have the mayor's support in this campaign. Like I said, we've been organizing together for some time and come out of similar organizing traditions. So I'm really thrilled to have his support in this race. I think the Congresswoman has every right to make an endorsement. I have the world of respect for her over 30 years of experience and work representing this district, and just being a true fighter for working people and immigrants and small businesses for her entire lifetime. I think people are free to make endorsements and determinations about who they want to support. And like I said, this will be, we'll leave it to the voters to make their decisions.
Have you spoken with the Congresswoman? I ask you this, Valdez, because as you know, this has been a big debate, right, surrounding the race. And I have to know, have you spoken with the Congresswoman? If not, are you planning to speak with her regarding this race?
I have been able to speak with the Congresswoman. And, of course, she has every right, again, to make her endorsement in this race. And I hope to continue having conversations with her as this goes on. Again, no matter what happens in this primary, I think it's incumbent on all of us to work to bring all sides back together and focus on winning a general election and governing with a really progressive majority and coalition behind us. So that's, again, the commitment that I'm making in this race.
Okay. The fact that the DSA endorsed your campaign, what does that mean to you in terms of the campaign? How much impulse add to it, basically?
It means the world to me. I've been a member of the New York City Democratic Socialists of America for over 7 years now. I've been part of many different campaigns for socialist candidates at the state level, for campaigns like Taxing the Rich, which is a fight that's ongoing at the state level right now. And I've been in leadership of the organization, helping to onboard new members and grow our constituency around New York City. So it means the world to me to have my organization's support. We are even larger than ever. There's so much energy in the aftermath of the mayor's election last year. So many people were brought into the political process, some for the first time. And it's that's something that's really exciting to me. That's building our democracy, that's growing our constituencies, not just for DSA's program, but for a progressive platform. And so we have, as I said, knocked on over 12,000 doors already. We have almost 700 volunteers. Some of those are members of DSA, but not all of them. And I think what I'm really excited about is building a campaign that brings in as many people as possible, that develops new leaders, that introduces people to the idea that they can go knock doors and talk to their neighbors about things that matter in their lives, that they can be real organizers in their own neighborhoods. That's the thing that brought me into DSA, and it's this thing that I want to keep building.
Okay. What do you think about the people who said that this is a race between socialists and those who are not?
I think this is going to be a campaign that really is about what we want to see the Democratic Party do in the future. This is a year where I think it's very possible that the Democratic Party can take back the House. I'm very hopeful that that happens. And this being one of the most progressive, if not the most progressive district in the country, we have the ability to really set the tone for what we want to fight for. I am so committed to building the labor movement and to making union density higher in the United States and in New York, because I see the labor movement as being on the front lines of fighting against fascism and fighting against this Trump administration. But we have to be taking on not just Trump, but the conditions that allowed his version, his fascist administration to grow. And that means taking on income inequality, it means taking on healthcare inequality, and bringing people back who might have voted for Trump in the past. Those are the things that are really important and essential in our agenda going forward. So this race for me is about those things. I happen to be a democratic socialist, but I think those are the things that we really want to work on in this race.
Some reports about the race also highlight that you don't have enough experience because you have been just 1 year in the assembly. What do you have to say to that, and how has your work as an assemblywoman prepared you for this campaign?
I share the same experiences that so many people in New York 7 have. I'm a worker. I'm a tenant. I'm a strap hanger. I take the bus and the subway all the time. I experience the city like so many people in New York 7 do, as one that is incredibly expensive, in which our freedoms are limited by how much time we have to spend at work, how much money we have to spend on childcare and healthcare. And those are the experiences that I think people want to see reflected in their leadership. In the New York State Assembly, I've been really proud to organize alongside my colleagues on campaigns to tax the rich, to win universal child care, to make our unemployment insurance program better. I've been organizing around bills to protect adjunct workers at universities and deliveristas who face really difficult working conditions and need greater protections, and really working to help protect some of the most vulnerable workers in our economy. Those are the things that I'm really proud of and proud to continue working on, hopefully as a member of Congress. And those are the experiences that I bring, and I think those will resonate at the doors.
Okay. What policies you think you share with your opponents? I know the abolish ICE is one of them, but what other policies?
Yeah, so I think it's actually a really good thing that there's broad consensus among all the candidates, and I think most of New York 7 that we need to abolish ICE, that we need universal health care, Medicare for all, that we need more and permanent housing, permanently affordable housing, I should say. So those are all good things that we share, and it reflects the political nature of this district, that I think these are bare minimums. These are kind of the bare minimum that we have to run on. I'll say that from my perspective, some of the things that I'm going to be focused on in this campaign really will be around workers' rights, the ability of workers to organize their own unions. There's a legislation called the PRO Act that I'm very excited about and supportive of. The Green New Deal, which would help usher in a green transition, but also really foreground the need for union workers to lead that transition and to build those renewable energy, publicly owned renewable energy. And so I think I will have a different focus, I think, maybe than some of my opponents. But again, I think it's actually a good thing that there's broad consensus on some of the most progressive pieces of our agendas. It shows that there's appetite for real change in New York 7, and that New York 7 can lead the way in a lot of these.
Okay. And what about affordability? Because that's another issue that is central, is essential in your platform. If you reach your goal to be in Congress, how are you planning to be the voice of the tenants?
Absolutely. So there is a piece of legislation carried by Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez called the Homes Act, which would not only bring more funding to our public housing developments, and there are a number of NYCHA developments in the district that badly need repairs and green retrofits, but it would also repeal the Faircloth Amendment, which has restricted our ability to build more public housing in the United States. And it would encourage the development of social housing. So that's housing that's permanently affordable, that's democratically managed by the tenants who live in it, and that's insulated from kind of market influence. And these are models that exist in some forms here in the United States, but certainly in places like Vienna and Barcelona, that are, again, permanently affordable housing that is also beautiful. And we should, our public housing, our social housing, they should be real jewels of our city and of our country. And because of generations of disinvestment, they've fallen into disrepair. So we have a lot of work to do to rebuild that housing stock and develop new housing stock that's also permanently affordable. But that's one answer to that question. And I'd be very excited and willing to stand alongside my colleagues at the state level and the city level as we fight to expand rent stabilization in New York City, to make sure that tenants can stay in their homes as long as they want to, and age and grow their families in the neighborhoods they love.
Okay. I'm going to move to Puerto Rico really fast. Brooklyn and Queens are very diverse counties. Brooklyn is one of the counties of New York with more Puerto Ricans, and it has a long Puerto Rican history associated with the diaspora in that area. Where does the topic of Puerto Rico rank in your agenda?
Very high. Puerto Rico does not have a representative in Congress. It is a colony of the United States, and the Congresswoman Velázquez has been its chief advocate and defender. Obviously, she comes from the island and has very deep roots there and commitments there, and her leaving Congress leaves a big hole. And so I think it's incumbent on anyone who's interested in representing this district, and particularly the very large and important Puerto Rican diaspora in Brooklyn, to make sure that it's very high on the agenda. And the island is facing many challenges, we know. A really fragile energy grid, a looming Medicaid cliff, and just the a lack of representation in Congress. And so I'm very committed to working with the Puerto Rican diaspora here in Brooklyn, but also Puerto Ricans on the island, to fight for the things that they need, the resources that they need, and to make sure that the question of status is decided by Puerto Ricans and not by anyone else.
What is going to happen now with Velázquez's retirement? How are you planning specifically to represent the interests of the Puerto Rican people, not only in New York, the ones from the diaspora, but also the Puerto Ricans in the island? What steps will you take to make that come true?
So something that is important to point out is, so I come from, as a member of UAW, Region 9A. Region 9A covers not just New York and the Northeast in the United States, but it also represents Puerto Rico. So my union represents about 7,000 workers on the island, the majority of whom are in the public service. And so they are directly experiencing austerity from the junta, are directly fighting against it. And so I have deep shared interest with my UAW siblings in making sure that they have that their jobs have the dignity they deserve, but also that they are able to organize, to put pressure on La Junta to fight for the resources that their communities need. And I'm really committed to deepening ties with the not just the UAW members on the ground in Puerto Rico, but with community groups that are fighting for renewable energy, for solar energy, who are fighting against austerity budgets, and trying to recover after Hurricane Maria. The island is still very much in need of recovery and needs support. But I think that those efforts need to be led by folks on the ground who know that work very, very intimately. And my commitment is in learning from them and fighting alongside them in Congress for the resources and the funding that they need.
What do you think? How do you think that the status issue could be solved in Puerto Rico? Through what tool specifically?
So Congresswoman Velázquez carries the Status Act, and it's something that I would be very committed to seeing through to make sure that the question of status is decided by people who live on the island. I think that's the really essential piece of this. I'm not Puerto Rican. I don't want to try to say for anyone who lives on the island and has been organizing there for years which way it should go. But I think that Congress's role is making sure that the question is decided democratically and that the outcome then is supported by us in whatever form that takes.
Why do you think that Puerto Rico has been a colony for so long, for more than 100 years? Is that because of the inaction of the Congress? Is a matter of political division in the island? What is your analysis?
I mean, I think Congress really does have a role to play here in pushing for, again, making sure that this decision can be made democratically by the people on the island. I think there have been missed opportunities at the congressional level to pass the Status Act. I think in part because of political will on our side. So I think that's my analysis there. I know that I think that's my analysis there.
Okay. Reynoso wants to introduce the Self-Determination Act, which is another bill that Velázquez introduced at some point in Congress. Mm-hmm. You don't support that type of legislation, and instead of that, the Puerto Rico status bill, for example.
Oh, sorry, I think I misspoke. So I was speaking about the bill that Congresswoman Velázquez carried, the self-determination bill. So I absolutely do support it.
In terms of migration, which is a topic that also affects migrants in the island, what are you thinking to present if you reach Congress? What type of bill will you present to deal with that problem and the abuses of the federal authorities here and in the island?
So I think, you mentioned this earlier, but I think abolishing ICE is the most important thing. It has to be our North Star in all of these conversations. It's really essential that we're not spending billions of taxpayer dollars on tearing our communities apart. And ICE has now been funded in this one big, beautiful bill with, many, many billions of dollars, and it's been militarized to the hilt. It's not just murdering American citizens in broad daylight, but it's been responsible for the death of dozens of migrants and immigrants who are in detention centers all over the United States, and it's a travesty. So I think abolishing ICE is the absolute bare minimum. I think it might take some time to get there, but that has to be our North Star in all of these conversations. This agency has only been around since 2003. We do not need it. And it is pretty clear that it's not going to be possible to reform it. We have to get rid of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, por ahí escucharon ustedes a Clarie Valdez, quien es una de las candidatas para ocupar el escaño que deja a Nydia Velázquez en el Congreso por el Distrito 7 de Nueva York. Ha hablado, ¿verdad?, sobre el enfoque de su campaña y bueno, seguiremos entonces conectados a esta carrera por el Distrito 7. Valdez, thank you very much for accepting this interview, for answering all my questions. We will keep in touch. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your time.